As promised, we're now joined by Sarah Foster from Bankrate, here to talk about their 2025 Wage to Inflation Index survey. Sarah, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Always enjoy it.
Fantastic. Tell us a little bit about what this survey studied and what you found from it.
Yeah, so it's a really complicated question that I think a lot of people have been wondering. Have your wages kept pace with post-pandemic inflation? We wanted to look into that, and the best way to do it was indexing inflation and wage growth to the beginning of 2021 because that's when the economy reopened and that's when inflation first took off. And what we found is that actually Americans' wages are still in the hole. That gap is closing, but it signifies that Americans have less purchasing power today than they did a few years ago.
In terms of how this is being felt, are there any demographic breakdowns or industry breakdowns that show this is happening the same way to everyone, or are different groups feeling it differently?
Yeah, so there are actually some industries where workers' wages did keep pace and actually beat inflation. Those were retail, food services, leisure and hospitality, and then healthcare. I think it's wage growth is always kind of this reflection of how much bargaining power workers have. And if companies are looking for workers and workers have lots of options, that's when they're able to negotiate and get bigger pay raises. And when companies are more likely to lift pay to lure talent. That's exactly what happened for those service sectors coming out of the pandemic when jobs came back much faster than the workers did. In healthcare, especially, that's been driving most of the job growth over the past 12 months. So that's probably why you've seen that be such a better kind of wage growth story for these workers.
What's the situation look like now? I've heard today's labor market, referred to as, being more sluggish, kind of this, slow hire, no fire, situation that's going on. What is that doing to wage growth relative to inflation, or do we just not have enough data on it for this year yet?
Yeah, you're right. This job market, many economists and workers themselves who are stuck in it describe it as just frozen in place. It's really hard for entry-level people to find better jobs. It's really hard for people who are still employed to move up the ladder. It results in everybody just getting kind of stuck in place. And so that's why you've seen actually wage growth slow and slow even more than prices have over the past couple of months. Something that we really like to do is kind of project out when the gap between inflation and wages will close. And that has been taking longer year after year as inflation stays stubborn. And now as the labor market, slows, it's also impacting how quickly Americans recover from inflation.
What kinds of things are people doing in order to try to still find ways to grow their wages during a more challenging labor market like this one?
Yeah, well, we do know from surveys that many workers, about half of them, plan to look for a new job in the next 12 months. And we also find that many workers are also interested in negotiating for a raise, asking their employer for more money. I think, from an economist perspective, when I'm asked, how do I get a raise in 2025, I often say that because it's so much harder to find a new job elsewhere, it probably is easier for you to at least get a pay increase if you're still employed with your current employer. Something I always like to say is that top performers are always rewarded, and the ones who remained agile, the ones who are always trying to get better at their jobs, improve their value, they're the ones who will be rewarded even in tougher job markets.
Fantastic. Sarah, thank you so much for the time today. We really appreciate it, and thanks for all the information that you were able to share with us.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to be on here.
That is Sarah Foster from Bankrate talking about wages and inflation.